Speaking of going quickly, we've got to go quickly. God, that was a really, really tired intro.
Oh, okay.
Got him. Yeah, this is a bit odd. But we're finally here, performing for you. And if you know the words, you can join in too. Because it's the Overclock Workshop, but it's the final 4. Well, not the final 4 ever, but the final 4 on the that will be about the weapons. That's not really true. It's not. There's no point in being that specific. It's like the final 4 on us coming up with one for the weapons. Like what? Huh?
Yeah, these are. I would say but Harry's kind of took this upon himself.
Yeah, but
favorite overclocks per gun.
You left it to me though.
I did no such thing. I was expecting that we'd have like some point in time where we'd do this together, and next thing I know, you already done the first 2 PowerPoint. But yeah.
Don't say PowerPoints. Like they know, but it's embarrassing still.
But yeah, we. I don't know. Yeah, these are our preferred, or hopefully our preferred overclocks for each of the guns that we came up with slightly altered to be the best form of themselves.
Well, some of them are fairly heavily altered.
Yep, and so they'll probably be not what they were supposed to be, because Harry.
No, they'll be what they're supposed to be. That's the idea.
That's what you wanted them to be, which is probably going to be too far, and I'm going to disagree with it, which is not the point of these videos. These were supposed to be our final agreed upon pictures, but here we are.
He left it entirely to me.
You took it upon yourself to do everything.
I don't want to start now.
Well, tough. All right. I don't. We'll get through this. It's the engineer. Obviously, as you can probably gather by the Eggman thing that you made. Did you make that, Harry? What's he up to?
Or by the fact that it says engineer and there's a picture of an engineer.
I'm pretty sure that he's the only way you'd know about that.
Either way, what do we really want from the Warthog? I know what I want. Penetration.
I think it bears note that was it the case that there is not a single one of our cleans on these?
Not in this one, and not in the gunner one either, and not in the driller one either. I don't think so. That's great.
Yeah. So if you liked the clean ones, they didn't make the cut, probably because they were too good and boring.
Well, one
and
of
Harry
them
couldn't
did,
stand them.
but it's not clean anymore. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not unstable, but it's not clean.
There it is. So there is not a single clean one that we're proposing then.
Either way, when you add penetration to a shotgun, you can get a disgusting amount of damage potentially, can't you? And that's why you need to be very careful. But it is the Warthog. What does that mean? It's so precise. It doesn't even count as a shotgun. It's not like, because I don't know what the boomstick one adds. I think it is +1. Obviously, this is an overclock, so we go further, and we also have half the magazine size to compensate. And in some ways, it's like potentially a very unfair penalty, as in like too little potentially, but at the same time, it's only potential, and it's like. And I think the Warthog could do with a way to feel a little bit better against crowds without relying on turret whip. But that's the build I would be looking for if I had something like this. You would take shredder rounds and turret whip. Then you've got an AoE Warthog, like very obviously. Or at least more so than before. And then you can really dedicate your secondary to single target damage without feeling like an idiot. And +2 made more sense to me than +1 for some reason. And it's very simple, but I think the Warthog would really benefit from one of these things. Are you in agreement?
Yeah.
I thought you were just gone. It's because well, yeah. I mean, what? It's not. We're not supposed to be able to discuss it.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be a thing, a workshop. But I have issues with it, which is not the point. As in, you are basically, tripling isn't the word, but I think it is. You're adding your damage plus your damage plus your damage, which I think is tripling, but you're not doing 3 times. You're just doing an extra 2. But you're doing that with only a cost to the magazine. I don't see a universe where this isn't going to be the best overclock for the shotgun.
Probably,
I think
every universe,
maybe
because people are so attached to what's already there.
In what cycle overload?
Yeah.
And I don't think people are attached. I think people don't have any really other choice. And I think this would be a very powerful other choice. Because it's pretty much tripling your damage with only a slight
It's not tripling your damage,
of reloading.
though. It's not tripling your damage. That's not how it works. It's not doing more damage per shot. Tripling your damage would be that would be more appropriate if it was like against a single target.
Well, no, but it's
not.
tripling your damage output per shot.
Yeah, but I think it's a very obtuse way of putting it, and it doesn't really help get to the best version of it.
Accurate way.
No, it's actually grossly inaccurate, isn't it? Because it's not really true. It's more complex than that, isn't it? You are
gaining 3 times the amount of damage. Your pellets do 3 times more potentially. And it is not. I mean, it's very likely that you'll enter a situation because enemies do group up like that, and the Warthog will have ample ability to tear through 3 enemies at a time. Right? It will often do this 3 times amount of damage to a group. And I agree that this is something the Warthog should get. I'm just arguing that this is broken. Or at least the penalty doesn't match the positive, or the positive is just too much. I think maybe if it was only a 1 penetration, then we'd be sitting at like a slight boost in damage.
Well, that's absolutely
with
fine.
An awkwardness, but I think it's just like that is too many enemies. I would argue.
Yeah, well, I'm not attached to these. I'm not attached to them. If you
no.
If you think they need to change, say what the change is, and I'll probably agree with you. So I guess that's what we're going to have to do.
Well, the thing is, you're recording this with the little thing, right? So can't you change it now?
Well, yeah, of course I can. That's good. I mean, that's what we should do, really.
I think because you see what I mean, though, right? Like, obviously, it's not going to technically boost its single target, which isn't really an issue if you're playing engineer. You can just use a starter factor, but like. You can see how you're getting a lot more damage out of the Warthog with that.
Yeah, but I don't think you feel the effects as much on a slower firing weapon. I mean, the Warthog's an interesting case though, because it's like you feel penetration, you feel pierce a lot on something like the minigun because there's just so many bullets. I think the Warthog, you would need to be a little bit more careful, perhaps. But I think I'd want that, and having 2 penetration might encourage you to fire a bit more wildly, but because it's like a weapon that has like a more like a medium amount of ammo and not the highest fire rate, you might actually find yourself very deliberately lining up 2 grunts to shoot at instead of just firing wildly, which I think would happen if you had +2, because the chance of you hitting at least 2 enemies is much higher. So I think 1 pierce would encourage just a much better play style. And that would suit the Warthog.
Yeah, I think it's just you don't really have to line up most of the time though in Deep Rock. I mean, I don't know, especially like Hazard 5s, stuff just is always in a horde of unruly amounts, right? So you could kind of just shoot wildly, and you'd most often pierce.
So I do agree that the +2 was too much, but at the same time, overclocks are meant to be more of a positive than anything else, and I think sometimes we forget how some of the ones in game are the positives are much more than the negatives, and that's okay sometimes. It's still 1 for 1. It's still 1 positive, 1 negative, and I don't think they should be exactly equal, in the effects felt of each. I don't think you want to feel the negatives that much, but they should still exist.
But you don't want an overclock that just rules a gun in how strong it is. And I think because I think honestly the Warthog, I think you kind of just pick overclocks due to them all being pretty mediocre.
Yeah, but I think in this case you can see how this is probably it makes a lot of sense, I think, when you actually think about what's going on here. It didn't with the +2, but when it's +1, that means you potentially double the amount of enemies hit, but you have half the shots in the mag. I think there's a lot of sense there.
That does just kind of feel more right. Especially because I would also argue this is still a pretty Warthog thing. Like, this is a pretty simple, like, tinkering, pretty balanced. Like, I don't know. I think this just does work, and I could see this being in the game, like, which helps.
I can see a lot of Warthog stuff being in the game because it's just a bit lacking in quantity of interesting things, and it's not even like that interesting. So it's in keeping. I suppose it's probably a bit in keeping with the Stubby that it sort of just has to be a bit weird to be good, but it's also not like the craziest thing in the world. The Stubbies doesn't really have a consistent selection of overclocks, and that's not going to change. It's not like this is particularly similar to anything else. AAA batteries, basically it's not the overkill thing. So that was like when you kill something and you gain damage, but in this case, the Stubby just gains direct damage and fire rate, a small amount, whenever you would electrocute something, / when you do electrocute something. Because really, the point of this is, you do have to build it up, but it's so you can do an acceptable amount of damage to things that can't be electrocuted. Is really, I think, the point, actually. Because it's something that the Stubby just can't do, and it's not something that the Stubby has to do, but that's why we're devoting an overclock to it, instead of just asking for the base damage to be increased. You know? And obviously it starts with less of both of those stats that it adds, and obviously resets upon reloading. So it encourages you to take certain upgrades, like electrocution, increased like chance, and magazine size as well. But and I think that one specifically though is good though, because that 5th-tier mag size mod gets no use. I think it's worth because
there's a mag size
tier 5. Yeah, it's like +20, and it's competing with electric arc. But I think in the case of what this is meant to be going for, you would be more likely to pick it with this, to be honest. Because electric arc isn't going to change much here.
Well, electric arc, it could, because you could mass electrocute in an instant, right, with electric arc, which would heavily increase your damage in a short amount of time.
But are you saying that electric arc should like increase, like add bonuses for each enemy it hits?
If you electrocute a target with the Stubby, it boosts your stats. I think that is, or even would inflict electricity, which I'm not sold on. Like, I get why you said it, so you could like shoot dreadnoughts and like
maybe, especially if you take the magazine size, there's probably going to be some things around that you can use to increase your damage and still have a good amount of bullets left to use on the bigger stuff.
Yeah, which I think that then, I mean, immediately is a bit of a fun thing with this, is that we're both immediately kind of like the 5th tier choices could go either way. Like, you could, if Turret Arc, like, if assuming it works like how we want it to, Turret Arc could boost your damage rapidly in a very short amount of time and cost a very little amount of ammo, or you could pick the more safe extended mags, and I think that could be an interesting like decision that people make.
You could build up a lot. So do you think perhaps you'd be more comfortable with it being able to like use directly against an Oppressor or Dreadnought if the starting stats were even a little bit lower, like maybe -3, because you'd be able to get over what it takes away very quickly and then very quickly build up. But I didn't want it to be too like punishing. I didn't want it to feel like crap, but it will only feel like crap for like a very brief period of time.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the electrifying percentage, it will be crap for at worst like 6 shots. I mean, it's not really how it works, but like 50% electric chance, right? Like, that's what you can get up to.
Yeah, and if you've got 50,
right?
And if you've got 50 shots in the mag.
Yeah, well, so within 2 shots, you could be matching your original damage as it stands, which is probably a bit iffy. If you're unlucky, it could go up to like 5 or 6 if you're really unlucky. But like within 2 shots, you'll be doing equal the normal amount. Not to mention you would actually be doing equal. And then within like a third shot out of 50, and it will already be stronger if you're lucky, right?
Yeah.
Not to mention that, you know, like, if you are brokenly lucky, every shot could electrocute, and the sheer output that you will be coming out at the end will be a bit ridiculous. I'm thinking maybe, like, I mean, even 3 feels wrong, but it probably is about right.
Or if we add a small magazine penalty.
Yeah, probably.
But small
10.
though. Small. Oh, I was thinking even 5 maybe, but 10. Well, you still have 20 starting off. I feel like if it was 10, the choice would be much more linear, and it would be the magazine size. Although, no, actually, well, no, because there's another magazine size mod that's like in the middle that you can take as well. So I think maybe 10 isn't a bad idea.
Maybe if we want to reduce it, make it 10, then maybe it should just go back to 2, -2 damage.
That sounds. Oh dear. That sounds fine.
Yeah. Because at least that's like now it's like what maximum 40.
There you go.
Which just means it's a bit more wieldy.
Well, no, it's not maximum. The maximum's still 50 because, like I said, there's another mod later on you can take, which is plus 10. It must be plus 10. It can't be plus 5. That's a pathetic mod. I mean, there you go. There you go. Enjoy.
I know. Yeah, I think it would be fun to do at least.
Yeah, the other one also.
And I'm not sure whether or not it'll fuck with the recoil as well, like the fire rate. But
I think I wanted to. Oh yeah, I guess the fire rate would in a way, but I didn't want it to feel. I don't want it to feel like EM Refire Booster at all. I need to feel unique. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway. Look who's next. It's just Dumb Rifle. Or the Just Rifle. AKA Smart Rifle Hipfire Overclock. I think the first thing we have to say is, even if you don't agree with how this has been executed, then we'll tweak things, you know, I'm sure. But it's just that I think we both agree that this overclock should exist in some capacity.
I really wished before like we actually knew the details on the smart rifle that you could shoot it without having to like do that scope thing. And obviously you can you can have like the DMR thing, but I wish it was an option. Like there was just basically a line in the upgrade path of not using the lock-on system, and it just being a DMR, like DMR or lock-on to burst. That would have been cool, but they just fully focused onto the burst, and I'm kind of disappointed by that.
Well, this is obviously drawn from your idea, but I made the executive decision that it can't take away the lock-on. It can't do that because it creates. I don't think it's a good idea, first of all, and I think it creates too many. It would create too many complications in trying to make this overclock work. Just to make those tier 5 mods work, all 3 of them require you to be able to lock on, and it's only there for those because it's not meant to feel good to lock on with this. That's what we've done. We've just made it feel a lot better to hit fire and feel worse to lock on. That's really the point of this overclock, and I think that's a good way of doing it. Plus the increased magazine capacity or ammo capacity, because it doesn't have that either, and I think it makes sense in this case because you're going to be using normal shots more and probably not getting those tier 5 mod benefits. So I think it's a fairly comprehensive attempt at like the dumbfire overclock, and I am personally satisfied with how it is here.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in that it might end up being a bit of a what's that grenade launcher one that sends you flying, or it might end up being a gimmicky thing, because obviously it's pretty gimmicky in nature that people use.
There's like a penetration mod, there's a pierce mod on the smart rifle, and it seems weird because it's like that feels like it's built for dumbfiring because it doesn't make much sense with the lock on. So you've got that going for it as well. So I think I would bet that they were working on something like this anyway. I mean, they were working on a turret one for the smart rifle, and they couldn't get it to work. So man.
But I don't know. I think this is like a gimmicky thing that people might just use for the ammo capacity, and like use the gun normally.
Yes, which is an interesting thing, isn't it? Where it's like maybe the smart rifle should just have an ammo one as well. something mini shells-esque almost, perhaps similar trade-offs. But I think in the context of this, if we really do want it to be a dumbfire overclock, it should discourage using the lock-on.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's fine. I just think people might use it for a different reason, like the RJ250 combo.
Well, I think the way it is was kind of me trying to. Well, I guess saying making sure that doesn't happen sounds a bit too like self-assured. It's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be in the game, so I need to make sure that people don't just use it for that. But obviously, that's not how it works. But I need to think
these
that way.
ones are.
Yeah,
these ones are the ones that we legitimately think should be in the game. Whether or not the exact things we're proposing will work after like some testing, if they do decide to add them, which once again, more than anything else, these would be the ones that we hope for. It's something we need to see.
yeah.
But for now, dumb Loki.
Dumb Loki. I have. We're back.
Hello.
That was the Smirt rifle. Next is the Puggle.
Puggle.
Yeah, the Puggle. So, this one is obviously, I'm not even based off, directly built off Tyler's Clean. And this one we did talk about, although you might still be dissatisfied in some ways. Maybe the name you might be dissatisfied with. I don't know. I put Scary Ass Fireworks in the description though. It's 1-2 because it's 1 then 2 secondary blast. Either way, the point of this was that there would be 2 small, like, fear-inducing pulses after the initial explosion. So I approached this the idea of how do I make that make sense, and it's like to do with like timing and whatnot. So for example, the first one goes off 2 seconds after, so it's like you know that it's there, but then the second one is like a bit more delayed, and that's, I think, it's an interesting part of this. And obviously these are a fear-inducing pulse, so it's quite a bit of fear, and a little bit of damage, because I really do think that should be part of this. In quite a wide radius too, because you want. Now the radius is obviously subject to change and isn't something we directly talked about. But in my opinion, it makes sense that this would have quite a bit of radius on the fear aspect with the little bit of damage. That like those pulses should be quite long range, because something else we're doing, and this is a very like unique penalty, I think, is just greater damage fall off. So the explosion gets even weaker towards the center of the blast. That's the main blast, but of course we have these 2 very pure, long range but weak pulses. So my question to you is does it feel like a betrayal of your overclock, or does it feel like a better version of it perhaps? I'm not sure. But I did try. I tried.
I'm not fond of the detonations doing damage. That's kind of.
I'm not budging on that.
And because if you want lingering damage, pick Fat Boy. That like I don't want.
It's almost just for swarmers though, and I feel like the PGL feels pretty bad against them without when you did the general, like RJ250. Even then, not really. That's where I'm coming at it from. Maybe Tyler. What if it did enough to kill swarmers across both?
No damage.
Because it would feel.
it's just
Tyler. That's the thing that I've added to this that I'm not taking away. You can take away anything else, unless you can give me a really good argument. Because I'm not convinced by the Fat Boy thing.
I don't know. It's not that special. If it's just an area damage that lingers. That's just basically the Fat Boy. But I don't know. It was just going to be a thing. It's just going to be area denial, where it's just send everything running, and that includes swarmers. In fact, they'd probably shit themselves the most, I imagine. But yeah, I mean, you got turrets for swarmers. The guns aren't really supposed to be made for the swarmers. I think that was a decision.
It would give you time to perhaps oh, this is weird for me, because I genuinely believe the PGL needs well, more ammo. Let's just go with that. I'm not going to say anything else. It needs more ammo base, and that in that context, this would be absolutely fine. But it's like, yeah, it would give you a lot of time, I guess. For example, like you're very often put off from using like the turrets with more ammo because then you have like the 4-second build time, which is pretty horrendous.
Yeah.
But with this, you just get a lot of room to work, but you're not necessarily just killing more stuff. And that's why I chose a small amount of damage, but it would still serve the same purpose without it. And it will give you more time to set up like those turrets, maybe even both turrets with more ammo, and then you can use turret whip like more effectively with more ammo on the turrets. That's what I'm thinking. That's where I would go with this. That
My goal
like a pretty good synergy.
It is just a breather of a weapon. I mean, if you're fine and get rid of that, 1 damage. Yeah, sure, fuck it, 1 damage.
yeah. And that's why I think the rate. But I do think because this is so much so just fear, it needs to be good fear and in a wide radius. Like, 'cause, you know, you got EM discharge, turret EM discharge, which is like, I think it is this like radius wise, but fear isn't as strong, but it also applies electricity. So it needs to be somewhat competitive with that, in my opinion, because you probably wouldn't be using the two at the same time, and they serve a slightly similar. They serve one similar function. This goes harder into that part of it. But if we're not doing making it do damage, I think this has very little place. At the same time, it doesn't if you consider the fact that there's no reason to not use incendiary compound, which isn't affected by damage fall off.
Yeah, I mean that. Oh, what is it like? I don't. Thing is with this is that really there's no reason to use anything other than ammo. You just need to give it as much ammo as possible, because otherwise it doesn't really matter. And it gets radius as well if it gets boosted by that. So would the incendiary compound like fight with those? I'm not sure what's on the same level as them.
No.
Like, so
it doesn't.
So there is no reason not to pick incendiary, basically.
No. So do you think that upset that penalty spot? Because like the reload one, I think is absolutely fine because, well, first of all, most engineers probably run born ready already, and you also have 2 secondary pulses. Yeah. So I think it's actually a good penalty. But also, if it was on its own as a penalty, it might be somewhat negated.
I think
combined with a secondary penalty, I think it comes together to make it quite balanced.
And I've just realised something which I feel like is worth mentioning. That 1 damage is actually a good idea because I want that damage to prevent your shield from recovering. Like you can't stand in that. It's not a shield, right? It won't. You will not.
Why can't it be a shield?
Yeah, like you will gain no shield back because it will interrupt it with all its intervals. Obviously, close things won't be attacking you. I mean, flies, you know, they'll probably still gun you down. But like, I think it's a quasi shield using fear, and I don't know. I don't know.
It's one. Like, it's not. It's just preventing shield recharge. All right, you're a bitch, but still. Because I didn't think about that. I mean, that's pretty obvious to me that it would help keep you safe, and that's.
Yeah, like obviously
you're not really going to hurt your teammates. Right, this will still be good on like a salvage op or from defending Doretta and things like that. You know?
Yeah. Like it still will be, but it's obviously it's not Gunner's shield. It's not going to keep you 100% safe. Like you're still going to get shot. Your shield isn't going to recharge while in it. In fact, it's going to anti-do that. Obviously, you can use this in ways where you could get away with it. Like if you're running into a tight tunnel, we shoot this at the entrance in the dirt bit, and you can leave, heal your shield, whatever.
Because of what shields do, right? Because of how good they are, you could cycle shields with just an engineer and a gunner. Because, yeah, I think that would be a legitimate strategy. Either way, an overclock that is for fear is also quite interesting, and I think we've done it's a pretty good go at it. It's like
that's what my original idea was. It's because normally, I mean, I've said this many times, but I take something that they didn't interact with a gun, and I just try and do stuff with it. And for this, like, it has fear as a part of the gun, you know, the deep core PGL, but they just didn't really do anything with it. So I was like, what can I do with it? and I decided to just double up on it or triple up with it, I guess. And yeah, I don't know. Obviously we had a couple of things, but no, I think this has actually turned out even better than what my original one was. But that's kind of because mine was a clean, because
I just wanted to give it a little bit more gravitas.
Yes, because of course,
but not to completely betray it either.
Honestly, it really does come down to the fact that it's not getting rid of any ammo. Might be it's like as much as I don't think it should. It never should. But
PGL needs more ammo. Or it just needs. PGL needs ammo taken from RJ250 and put on the base gun. That's what it needs.
They really like getting rid of ammo most of the time, and then when they give it some, it's not really worth talking about. But I think the fact that it doesn't take away from it, and it actually provides other utility other than just killing, it'll be something.
I have a lot of respect for this, and it's like just a better idea than the rest of them. That's how it works. Unfortunately, we didn't have the same thing. Didn't go for the breach cutter because I reviewed the footage and we didn't really like any of them. I think we both quite enjoyed your horrible thing.
Unstable.
Yeah, but obviously
I realise it's already in the game.
Exactly. So I sort of had to start thinking.
Oh, so you've just made up?
No, we have discussed this. You've probably just forgotten everything about it. Anyway, I got some expansion. So I can't remember what the basis was. Where it was like, as in, I think I did base it on one of them.
I remember
now. It was based on my hula hoop one, which was actually pretty terrible. But I figured out a way. I thought maybe this can be more normal, so we can take certain aspects of this.
Didn't I also have like a clean, wider one as well?
Yeah, so there's a bit of that in it too. So we are making the beam wider, but it's actually an expansion over time. And to immediately explain that, it's like I'm thinking you get more coverage, but at a longer range, and in this case it's very specific because like you get increased lifetime as well. So you're encouraged to fire at large groups of enemies that are further away, which is something you don't normally do with the breach cutter. And we got fear added into the mix as well a little bit, which I'm not sure I know how to justify it, but it feels right for this for some reason.
Yeah, I think it feels right because it would be immensely strong, and I think that's why it shouldn't be there. Like if they're running away into the beam, that's kind of
that was the idea,
broken.
But it would get past them still. But I think maybe that was made to counteract the decrease in damage. But obviously, we have. So let's just break the penalties down because we've got decreased starting beam width, which is necessary. But also, I didn't want to be too punishing because I think it should build up to quite a wide beam in the end. But obviously, it would only be really wide at like the very end of its lifetime. So if you can time it right, you could probably hit a lot of enemies, but a lot. But it would require timing.
Within a second, it'll already be bigger than it normally is. With that decrease.
So I get So it was -1 at first.
Maybe just do it like so it takes a second to actually get normal width, and so like shooting it directly in front of you is just an objectively bad idea, right? You need that to be the case. So just make it like 1.5.
Yeah, all right. So we've got 1.5s going on. So it will be like it will hit barely anything directly in front of you. That's a good idea because, and also we've got decreased beam DPS as well because it's still going to be. It probably won't kill guards. I mean, it doesn't kill guards normally anyway, but it's still going to be killing. It's probably still going to be killing like slashers and Macteris, and obviously it's going to be killing grunts. But the idea is that you're going to be killing more of them because the breach cutter is obviously a crowd clearing weapon, but it is a hybrid of crowd clearing and single target. It's got pretty good single target, and it doesn't really have an overclock that specs into crowd clearing because it's so inherently good at it, I suppose. But I still wanted to go for that, right? And I think that necessitates making it less attractive to use against single targets. Because if it has less base width, that means you actually get less damage because it's staying in contact with an enemy for less time. And it also does less damage to them. So it really does encourage you to use it more planned, I suppose, against larger enemies, not larger enemies, large groups that are a bit further away instead of using like a plasma shotgun, which is what you normally do. But I still think it would still be the breach cutter. So back to the fear then. It's got to go, right? It's got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's only because that was also part of the hula hoop idea I had, and I wanted to find a way to keep it, but that doesn't mean it was the right idea, and that's fine.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I really didn't like the hula hoop idea, because I thought that it was both immensely overpowered and the worst thing you could ever use at the same time, and it really hurt me. But no, I think this is pretty simple.
It's also
which is
lifetime
pretty
and
in theme
width,
with the breach cutter,
which I think is interesting. And there isn't, and the only width overclock is spinning death, and that's just weird. I think this is slightly less. I don't know. Because this is one I sort of thought about for a while and thought, what's the actual use for this? And then I realised, oh, no, I think this actually definitely has a place, like in game. I can see how I would use it.
It's just use it as the breach cutter. But really, I mean, that's kind of how the breach cutter is most of the time. You just look at a horde of enemies and then press trigger. But with this, you just need to be slightly further away from them. Yeah,
you probably wouldn't use it much differently. It's just you're probably going to save it for groups more than you would just like. You wouldn't see a Praetorian and be like
tier 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's going to be pretty strong with this.
Yeah, Plasma Trail would be good. Well, depending on how, because Explosive Goodbye, if it could like work with this, like, as in it would be a big explosion, that would be pretty cool. It doesn't have to be stronger, it just get more. But still,
what's the other tier
Plasma
5?
Trail and Triple Split Line would be where it's at.
Yeah, so basically, I think it fits into all the tier 3s pretty well, like because that is something that the Loki one does have an issue with, but this is fine if it works with tier 5s, which are basically just like 0.5 overclocks.
Yeah, also the British Cutter's got quite like a varied selection. It's got like 2 ones that like change the way it fires, Return Sender and Spinning Death. It's got 2 separate status effects ones, and it's got like a good selection of cleans. So it wasn't easy, and that's why I had to basically create something new. So, and I think it's pretty decent. The British Cutter also has 7 overclocks, to be fair, and it's a pretty decent selection. Exactly, it doesn't really need a new overclock. That's the thing.
Although it is worth mentioning that the clean ammo is regarded as the best overclock for it. Well, so maybe just more tinkering for the old ones needs to be done.
Well, yeah. So it wasn't so much a case of like trying to figure out what it needed. It was more so just like something I would like that's unique, And I'd like this more than Return to Sender and Spinning Death for certain. So that's that's not bad. Well, there you go. Who's next? Oh my God! It's the Prism. It's the Prism.
Yeah, I mean, this one we both came up with, didn't we?
Yeah, in different ways, and I think this is slightly different from both of ours. Well, yeah, it must be. So yeah, prismatic laser. It fires out 3 weaker beams towards nearby enemies, 1 in contact with 1 enemy. And they are sub beams, like the ones that come out, and they deal half damage. So the idea was AoE via direct damage. Right? I think that was the idea. Yeah. And also we like the idea of it splitting off from a single target. I think, because I think that was yours, except... Yeah, it was your one, except you had like 20 lasers for some reason.
I had 8 because of rainbow.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And they would have been rainbow coloured.
Yeah, look at this. Look at the symbol. It's not normal, is it?
Exactly.
Either way, so yeah, crowd clearing through direct damage, as in... It will basically just automatically hit things for you while you're hitting something. But the playstyle it would encourage is like you want to be hitting directly like the strongest enemy you can, like a Praetorian. That's what you're probably going to want to shoot directly, and it will clean up the grunts around it like over time. And but to sort of like hone in on this very weird like crowd clearing through direct damage thing, it's like. So we'll reduce weak point damage because you're not necessarily meant to just be melting an enemy with the precision of the shard diffractor, but you're also not meant to be shooting at the floor or at crowds to kill them in that way. So we reduce the radius a little bit, and I think I might have got this right. Maybe.
I just realised this idea is very similar to what's it? for the minigun, the one that is notoriously hated.
Yeah, but this would be a lot better because of fire, and it's also 3 beams, and they're always going as long as you're hitting something. So I don't know, because it is slightly hard to envisage like in game, but I think we just like the prism, the diffraction idea too much, deflecting off of enemies, and we can't let it go. And we're not letting it go. But do you think that there's anything inherently wrong with this version of it, Tyler, my friend? Help, or just say, it's fine. Any last words?
I'm making sausages for dinner.
You're making sausages.
Well, not making the sausages, but I'm putting them in the oven.
Tyler, I mean, you could probably use this for that, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
But yeah, I don't know. It's
also something that it's not doing. Right, it is unique. So
yeah, it was airing on one of the more fun overclocks. You know, like sometimes they get a bit goofy, a little bit fat boy. You know what I mean? But just because they're fun doesn't mean they have to be bad. Similar to Fat Boy. So
yeah, and I think it's also somewhat borne out of the fact that I don't think the Shard Diffractor actually has a way of doing crowd clearing that feels like true to itself. It feels like it feels like the proper Shard Diffractor. Like the crowd clearing ones is like you put lava on the ground, or you shoot at your platform, or you just give yourself a lot of ammo and like AoE mods, but then it doesn't feel that good. So this is sort of patching that hole, I think. As in, it will feel even more like the Shard. It will be Shard Diffractor squared, basically. That's the idea. So yeah. So that's all well and good then. All right, we did it, Tyler. We did it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess we're on the wrapping up part of the video. If you disagree and you think some of our overclocks were better, comment below. Or if you agree, which people often do because we're the best, then also comment. Or come up with your own, because not that we have any intentions of sending this to Ghost Ship, but like if we wanted them to see any of our videos, it would be these ones, like this final series, the final pitch lot, because we think these are the ones most worth adding. And I don't know, whatever you think's worth adding, put in the comments.
What I'll say about that is that I would love to do potentially a user like a viewer like created one of these. But the weird thing about that is obviously, you could do it yourselves, I suppose. But if you wanted me to like put them together in this way, and if you just gave me an idea, and I would like, obviously it would be your overclock, you'd be credited, and we could do that video. That's something I'd like to do, but we'd need to rack up a good selection of actual ideas.
Yeah.
And obviously, if I wouldn't just take them, like you'd have to say like that you'd want me to use it. Like, I'm not just going to take anyone's ideas that they post in the comments. So if you want them, so I would like to do a video where I use viewer created overclocks. But if you want that, just say. Like I'm not. I think it's pretty simple. I just want to be as good about it as I can if we do that video. But I do think it's a good. I do like that idea.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
And I'm not sure and then we'll go over it and tear them to pieces.
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be the idea. I think I would put it in directly, and we would try and make it good, or just agree with them potentially.
Yeah, or acknowledge that they're better than we are.
Exactly. So, and you would obviously, like I said, you would be credited. It's not us pitching your ideas as our own. That's really what I'd want to avoid with that.
It would have like Azog the Ugly in like the top left or something.
Yeah.
Because I think he normally responds to these ones.
So anyway, that was our most. I guess it is our most wanted overclocks for engineer. I guess. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what it's
pretty
supposed to
much.
be.
Yeah,
and I do
most
want, we
wanted,
do want
most
them.
refined,
We do
most
want them.
believe. Yeah, I think the only one that's give or take is the Loki one. I think it's what we wanted to be the Loki at the beginning, but I think clearly they have no intentions of it.
But I
A
suppose-
non-smart focus.
I would pose the question though, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. If I were to ask, like, which one of these would you want the most? Because the idea is it's the one you want the most for all the weapons.
Yeah.
I'm still going to ask that question. Which one of these would you really want the most? Because for me, honestly, it's the grenade launcher one.
Yeah, it's the same for me. Kind of because it's probably one of my most proudest ideas. Not that it was anything special. I just think it's like a slightly more unique way of doing stuff. Like normally I would have just added more fear or bigger fear radius, but I decided to make it like slightly different. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think I can see a pretty strong, like, valid utility to it there, while not inherently being broken either.
But if you are going to go with that, I'll go with my breach cutter one actually, because I'm relatively out of that, and I can see myself using it. So these two, even though the breach cutter doesn't need them, all right.
Although I would argue, I think some of them.
The truth of it is, I think this is probably the best one out of the bunch, and that's fine.
So within this video, Ghost Ship Games, if you only wanted to add one of them, it's this one. Do it.
I reckon if they did, it'll be like fucking terrible. All right, that's all. Next week we'll be doing the Gunner final pitch. I think I've got some good stuff there. I know we got one that we are very, very enthusiastic about.
All right.
I'm sure Tyler memory will kick in a moment. Either way, thank you very much for watching and for just getting this far with us. See you next time on Barrel Man.
Bye.